Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Schindler and this is the fifth part of our free beauty retouching tutorial right here on YouTube. In our previous tutorials, we did raw image processing, then we did skin, hair and eye healing. We went on to do liquify and then we smoothened our background. In this video, we'll be doing skin retouching using frequency separation. Frequency separation is a method of retouching where you separate an image into high frequency layers or textures and low frequency layers, that is colors. To begin, I'm just going to create a stamp visible layer by pressing Ctrl, Alt, Shift and E. I would name that layer our frequency separation base. Now I'm going to duplicate the layer by pressing Ctrl J, and I'm going to create another duplicate by pressing Ctrl J again. You can also duplicate the layer by dragging the layer on top of the new layer icon. So with two copies of the layer, I'm going to name the lower layer as our colors and our upper layer as our textures. Now to begin our frequency separation, I'm going to disable the textures layer and select the colors layer. I'm going to press filter, blur and Gaussian blur. I'm going to select a radius where a significant amount of the textures have been removed from the image. So I'll be selecting a radius of 10. As you can see, significant amount of texture has been removed from the image. I'll click OK and come to the textures layer. I'll turn it on and I'll go to image and apply image. Now with the source as our file name, I'm going to select the layer as colors, channel RGB, and our blending mode will be subtracting from the RGB, the color layer, sorry. With our scale at 2 and our offset at 128, you can see that we have our texture layer enabled there. So I'm just going to press OK and change the blending mode of these textures layers from normal to linear light. I'll press and hold Shift and press the colors layer and press the group icon to group them. And this is our frequency separation group. So if I zoom in and I disable the frequency separation group, as you can see, there is no difference and there should be no difference between that and the original image. But as you can see, we have our textures layers on its own and our colors layer on its own. Now to work non-destructively, I'm going to duplicate the color layer and I'll rename it as color work, because that is the layer we'll be working on. And I'll duplicate the textures layer as well, disable the bottom one and name this textures work. So we'll be working on the work layers of this, and the other layers will be our backup layers in case something goes wrong. Now for the actual retouching on the colors layers, what we are aiming to do is to smoothing out the colors. So when I disable the textures layers, we want to smoothen out the colors and the color transitions from highlights to shadows and the different parts of the colors. And there are two major ways of doing that. The first way is using the lasso tool and Gaussian blur method, So I'm just going to press L for the lasso tool. And what we'll do, or what we'll be doing, is with our lasso tool enabled, we are going to feather the lasso tool to a sufficient feathering to have smooth transitions. In this case, I'm using a feather of 35, but it varies from image to image. And I'll select an area I want to smooth out. Let's say this area. I'll go to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur, and select a suitable radius to blur it out. Now, what most people will tell you is to increase the blur layer till the, the selected area is sufficiently smoothened. However, I find this to be a bit risky. What I'll do is, however, is select a small blur radius and select OK for a small change. Then I gradually increase the feathering by coming here and clicking on Gaussian blur, and to apply the same blur radius, or you can press the shortcut Alt, Control, and F. So I'm just going to do that, click that until I find it suitable, and I think that's okay. Now, if you look at the area we have blurred, this is the before and this is the after. You can see some significant smoothing in that area. Before, and after. So we are going to select pockets of color to do that. Another way we can smoothing the colors is by using the mixer brush tool. We are going to make sure current brush load is on clean brush. Our wetness, load, mix, and flow will be at 24, 30, 90, and 31% respectively. Also, you can set the smoothing for your stroke. So I have the smoothing at 10%. And basically what the mixer brush allows you to do is to gently mix colors. However, I find this to be a bit risky and you need some experience to do that. So for majority of this tutorial, we are going to be using just the lasso tool and Gaussian blur method. So I'll speed up the video while I smoothen out the colors. Be sure when you are smoothing pockets of color to also smoothen the transition between different pockets of color you select to have a very good transition. If you do a good enough separation, you should be able to make the colors layer almost plastic-like without it actually looking fake when you turn on the texture layer. So for example, when I turn on this texture layer, the skin should not look fake, even though the color layer, as we have worked on it, almost looks plastic-like compared to the original. So just a little before and after, you can see we have done some significant smoothing. So I'm just going to continue with that until we get smoothing all over. All right, so we are done with the smoothing of our colors, and this is the before and this is the after. As you can see, we have smoothened out of the all the colors. When I turn on the textures layer, you can see that there is a massive change before and after our skin has been smoothened. All right, so just a few things I want to do. This light reflective part over her face, I want to work on these transitions, and the mixer brush tool will be more suited to help me do that. So what I'm going to do is modify the size, and I just want to brush in colors to make those transitions smoother. Okay, just to make that transition smoother. So if I go to our history, this is before I use the mixer brush, and this is after. You can see the transition is much smoother. However, in our next video, we'll be really dealing with the highlights and the shadows in our image, but that's for the next video. So the next part of this image is basically working with the skin textures, and like we did in our skin, hair and eye healing, we'll be using the healing brush tool or the spot healing brush tool. This time we'll make sure sample all layers is turned off, and then we'll basically be working on any further imperfections in the skin, like so. So I'm just going to speed through that. Also, we'll be using the clone stamp tool, which is S, in case we want to sample some textures. So let's keep that in mind. All right, so we are done with our textures work, and so this is a before and after of our entire frequency separation. As you can see, our skin is much smoother and looking much better. But we are not done yet in our retouching. You can see there are some dark parts, some dark shadows on her face, as well as some outstanding highlights on her face, which will be treated in our next video, which is dodging and burning. So we'll be doing that in our next video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you can't wait to see our next video on dodge and burning, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and bye.